Siege, the Transformers toy line that was all about recreating the Cybertronian forms of G1 characters, and how they explicitly said that they were homaging the Cybertronian forms seen in the first episode of the cartoon? Yeah, remember how only 2 figures actually came out like that? Well, it seems Hasbro's been putting in an effort to rectify this because the Target-exclusive Buzzworthy Bumblebee line has seen the release of Origin figures based on the Episode 1 designs that never got released in Siege. And that includes the subject of today's review, Origin Jazz. Jazz's vehicle mode is based heavily on the hovercar mode he had in the Cybertron scenes of More Than Meets the Eye Part 1. They did make it a little boxier than it was in the animation, but it's still very recognizable. Honestly, I didn't even notice the difference until I looked at them side by side. Given how simplistic the design is, pretty much everything was translated, and with a ton of added detail to boot. There's extra panel lines molded in for the hood and doors, some extra vents near the engine compartment, and even some extra detail on the windshields. It's definitely a strange design for a vehicle mode, but weirdly, it does retain a lot of DNA from his eventual Porsche form, at least in this iteration. Not only does he have the massive rear wing, but the curve of the hood and the angle of the windshield are both very reminiscent of the original vehicle. Even the windows have a similar shape to them, with how they stretch back along the slope of the roof. It's much narrower in proportion than the Porsche, which brings it back to the alien feel of the cartoon design, but you can still tell a lot of thought went into making the vehicle mode feel right for the character. The paint deco in this mode is, admittedly, a little simplistic. Aside from the white on the cockpit section, the only paint apps you get for this mode are the blue on the front and back, and the silver on the grille and intakes. By the way, major props to Hasbro for painting in those intakes. It's such a small detail that I didn't even notice until sitting down to write the script, but they still went to the effort of adding it. But that aside, there isn't a whole lot going on here. Of course, there wasn't a whole lot going on with the cartoon design, so I guess that makes this okay. What's less okay is the lack of functionality in this mode. The robot arms on the underside of the vehicle form a base for him to rest on, which does create a bit of a hovering effect, but there's no wheels, so you can't actually drive him around in any way. There are 3 5mm ports in this mode, 1 on the roof and 2 on the back end. So you can store his weapon in this mode, either on the roof or on the back, or create a rocket boost effect if you have the fire blast parts for it. Aside from that, I mean, if you break the transformation, you can give him suicide doors, but that's all I've got. And to be honest, I don't really care for the use of the arms as a stand. You have to view the toy from very specific angles to get any real hovering effect. From most angles, well, it just looks like he's sitting on his arms. Not helping is the fact that the robot chest just hangs down from under the front of the car, so it's super easy to see the fake Porsche grille. I feel like this vehicle could have been made a lot cleaner, and the designers are just making an excuse here. Altogether, this is a very nice looking vehicle mode, and that's all there is to it. It's very limited in playability, and the undercarriage feels under-engineered. This is a mode that's best suited to a display case where it just sits around looking nice. If you want to actually play with the toy, you're gonna have to transform it. To start the transformation, you're gonna want to lift up the front of the vehicle ever so slightly to undo the door tabs. I don't know if I feel comfortable with the level of tension in this connection, but this figure has held up for a few months now. From here, you need to untab the arms from the bottom, which frees the back section up to extend on a double hinge. It's a little bit awkward since the hinges move independently of one another, but with just a little finesse, it should go easily enough. The sides of the legs then open up to swallow the door panels. You might be inclined to leave these open when working the double hinges, but that would create clearance issues that prevent things from tapping together easily, so I wouldn't bother. As you can tell from this footage, there is enough clearance for the double hinges to move even with the legs closed up. Once the legs are all transformed, things get fairly simplistic. The entire rest of the vehicle comes down on a double hinge, then folds up on itself to form a backpack. I hate the way you have to flex the windshield piece to get it to clear the hood. I always feel like I'm gonna break it, especially with the clear plastic. The whole thing comes to rest on a set of tabs that can be a bit of a hassle to line up if the joints are too tight. But once that's all out of the way, you can fold the arms out to the sides and remove the accessory that's stored between them. Bring down the chest, rotate the head, flip out the fists and straighten the arms, and that's Jazz in robot mode. I have to admit, I'm impressed with how on-model this robot mode is. Considering it came from a vehicle that looks nothing like a Porsche, there's very little on this figure that looks out of place on the cartoon design. Even the spoiler pieces on the sides of his legs pass surprisingly well for his ankle fenders. Unfortunately, the illusion shatters when you look at him from the side and see that most of the vehicle is just hanging off of his back. The only part of the figure that actually uses the vehicle's mass is the legs, and even then, the parts visible in vehicle mode are all on the back. I understand that they had to hide all of this on a deluxe budget, but I think they could have at least found a better way to work in the nose of the vehicle. Back to positives, though. Like most modern generations toys, there's a ton of extra sculpting on top of the cartoony detail. In addition to random bits of panel lining, there's some added shapes on Jazz's midsection, as well as some almost feather-like detail on his ankles. The part I really like is his faux Porsche chest, where they molded in the vents and hood from the actual vehicle. They even made the headlights clear, which is a nice touch. Would have been better with some light piping, but I'll take what I can get. The head sculpt, of course, is unmistakable. Jazz's head is one of the most unique among the original Autobots, and this figure captures it perfectly. It's also weirdly characterful for a Diaclone head design, with the big visor kind of resembling those oversized sunglasses that were popular in the 80s. Almost makes me wonder if that's what inspired Bob Budiansky to characterize him the way he did. Moving on, let's talk articulation. The neck is on a ball joint with plenty of wiggle room, the shoulders are universal, and you can get a little bit of butterfly motion out of his transformation joints. The biceps have full rotation, and the elbows bend to 90 degrees. The waist rotates, and is surprisingly unimpeded by the back kibble. The hips are integrated into the pelvis, so you still get universal motion without having to deal with skirts. Unfortunately, the outward motion is restricted a fair bit by the tabs on his backpack. The thighs swivel, you get almost 90 degrees of bend at the knee, and the feet can tilt inwards. Jazz comes with two main accessories. First up is his classic photon rifle, once again looking very cartoon accurate. Not only does it have the trapezoidal body with the exposed tube on top, but small details like the roundels are carried over, and you can even see the ridges on the bottom through the hollowed plastic. All it needs is a coat of silver paint, and it's just about perfect. The photon rifle fits nice and securely in Jazz's hand, and it's just right in proportion, so you can get some really nice looking poses. And if you want to store it, there's a peg on the side that allows it to lie flat against his back. As for his other accessory, you get the grappling hook he used throughout more than meets the eye. It comes in two parts, the winch and the hook, which peg together using a 5mm post. Folding back either of Jazz's hands reveals a 5mm port, to which you can attach the winch, or even just the hook if you want. It looks pretty good on him, though with no string, it's a little difficult to play with. Especially with how small the hook is, I feel like I'm going to lose it if I ever take it off. Of course, with this technically being a Legacy Evolution figure, he has the Evo Fusion feature. For Jazz, this means that both the winch and hook have 3mm ports inside of their 5mm posts, so you can attach the grappling hook to the barrel of the gun to make it into a sort of grappling gun. It's a little inelegant, but I'll give it this, it's one of the more clever Evo Fusion combos I've seen them come up with. It's not just randomly plugging weapons together, it actually looks like there's an idea behind it. Jazz stands at around 5 inches tall in robot mode. This puts him around the same height as most modern Autobot car figures, which is about what I would expect in terms of scale. I'm honestly running out of things to say here. Hasbro's been really good about keeping their Generations figures in scale with one another for the past few years. There really isn't much more to it than that. I don't think anybody expected this toy to be as good as it is. It's not perfect, I really wish something had been done about the backpack, but I still think there's some clever design going on. The vehicle design evokes both his cartoon model and his future Earth mode, but the toy still manages to turn that into a highly show-accurate robot. And aside from the roof bit, the process of going back and forth from one to the other is quite a bit of fun. If you're open to oddities like this, I would highly recommend you pick up this figure. Well, that's 2 down, only one more Origin figure left to go.